Welcome to our Commonwealth Club of Rome webinars as part of this year's Diplomacy Festival. The Commonwealth Club has been collaborating with the festival for a few years now. The Commonwealth represents 54 countries and accordingly is well placed to contribute to the international dialogue that is stimulated through the festival. The Commonwealth Club was founded in Rome in 1947, 73 years ago, and seeks to contribute to the Commonwealth dialogue in Italy. Over the years, the Commonwealth and Italians have had many flows back and forth, which have contributed to enrich both the Commonwealth and Italy. Some of these enrichments have flowed out of those from the Commonwealth coming to live in Italy. Another of our episodes in this series will speak about this. Some of these enrichments have flowed out of Italians living in Commonwealth countries. In fact, today's episode is just one example of this type of enrichment and begins in 1861, when law number 4671 of the Sardinian Parliament proclaimed the Kingdom of Italy, so ratifying the annexations of all other Apennine states plus Sicily to the Kingdom of Sardinia. More than 30 million Italians have since migrated around the world, many of these to Commonwealth countries. There are now more than 60 million with Italian origins living around the world, and over 5 million of these are still Italian citizens registered on AIRE, Anagrafe Italiani Residenti all'Estero. They're a Weird Mob was an Australian-Italian co-production in the 60s. It starred the famous Italian actor Walter Chiari. It was a story about an Italian migration to Australia and how they saw their new host country. Italy has responded to this, allowing those overseas citizens to be represented in Parliament. Today, the Commonwealth Club speaks with Senator Francesco Giacobbe, whose electorate includes Italians living in Australia and 37 other Commonwealth countries. Welcome, Senator Giacobbe.
Thank you very much. And yes, I'm elected in a very wide electorate, which comprises Africa, Asia, Oceania, and Antarctica.
Senator, can you tell us a little about the contribution of Italians to Australia and the Commonwealth, and what Australia and the Commonwealth have to offer to Italians?
I believe that Italians, wherever they are, they make a significant contribution to the local society for several reasons. One is because Italians can easily adapt to the new conditions they live in, and they become part of that society, becoming the protagonists, becoming the very active actors of the life in the society, both from a social point of view, from a cultural point of view, from an academic point of view, and from an economic point of view. What motivated people to leave Italy over the 120, 130 years and was the search for a new life, was the search for a job, was the search of a security for their children. So many people left Italy hoping to find the conditions where their children could grow up in better economic circumstances, could have access to education, could have access to careers in life. And I must admit that this has been very successful everywhere around the world, not just in the Commonwealth countries. Amongst the Commonwealth countries that have been destination of Italians, of course, the United Kingdom, but also Australia, New Zealand, and believe it or not, there's Italians everywhere, even in African countries and Asian countries, including India, where they have established themselves. And as I said earlier, they have they've contributed to the development of the society. But coming close to home, and what I mean home is the place where I've lived over the last 40 years, which is Australia. I believe that the Italians were instrumental to make a significant contribution to the multicultural society. Now, as you know, in the mid-1970s, Australia embraced the concept of multicultural society, the recognition that Australians come from from different backgrounds, from different countries, they come from different cultures. And rather than coming into a dominant group, the government recognized the fact that the Australian society is a mix, is an integration of all the different groups. And in the process of integration, what involves is basically respect of each other, respect of each other's traditions, each other's culture, and embracing what I think is the best of cultural and social and traditional that each group can offer. Now, if we look at what Italians have done in that regard, really it's amazing, because they became a natural part of the Australian society. And if we can judge the success of integration as to extent to which the traditions of one particular cultural group become part of mainstream, today's Australia today is the proof that Italians were very successful. There is all aspects of social, cultural life in Australia, which has got a little bit of Italian. So the Italian lifestyle, not just limited to food, but in particular in relation to food, but also in relation to the way we dress, the way we behave, even in terms of family values, has become part of everyday's life in Australia. So I think from that point of view, the contribution of Italians to the creation of that multicultural society has been very, very significant. The other aspect has been the commitment of Italians to the economic landscape of the countries where they live. They become entrepreneurs, they are very good workers, and they are expert craftsmen. They are very fine minds in terms of developments of culture. And Australia is second to none from this point of view. Italians in Australia have been entrepreneurs. They've been skilled workers. They've brought in skills that Australians were not aware of, especially in many trades. Italians have contributed to the world of arts in developing in all these different aspects of arts, from graphic arts to cinema to movies to acting to writing, and etc. So they have made a significant contribution from that point of view. And now the children and grandchildren of the original migrants have become part of the professional world. They represent a great resource for Australia because they are contributing to decision making, because the children of the original migrants are now key members of those decision-making positions that today govern Australia, from the political arena to large and small companies to trade organization to professional organization. Many premiers around Australia have been elected and they were of Italian origins, especially in New South Wales. Even the Deputy Prime Minister for a while was someone of Italian origins, and now is the leader of the Labour Party in Australia. So as you can see, Italians have been have made a huge contribution to the development of society, to the construction of multicultural society, have made a significant contribution to the economic landscape of the country, and today the children and grandchildren are playing a very important part in governing modern Australia.
Senator, flowing on from this, can you tell us a little about what your thoughts are about those countries where Italians are in the Commonwealth in Australia? How can they contribute back to Italy in various ways?
But, you know, what people usually think of is the contribution that Italians have made by remitting the earnings back to Australia. This was true in the 1960s, when people were living, especially in southern Italy, they were living the families that were not well off, and therefore they kept on supporting their parents or their brothers and sisters by remitting money back to Italy. And that was a significant contribution that helped Italy also to overcome the World War II post-war crisis and economic recovery. However, I think the best contribution that Italians abroad have made to Italy is to lead by example the development of Italian exports. What do I mean by lead by example? You know, I'll give you a very simple example just to make my point. If you want to sell something in a market that does not know the product, let's say you want to sell pasta in a market where the locals have never are not used to eating pasta because it's not part of their diet, you have to first invest heavily in promoting the product, in explaining how it works, how good it is, and why it is so good, and why do you need to buy. And that takes time and takes investments, financial investments. It takes time because people don't get convinced overnight, and takes financial investments because you need to do advertising, you need to do sponsorships, you need to do everything that takes to be able to illustrate the quality of the product that you want to sell. By having such a large community of Italians, and nearly 5% of the Australian population is of Italian origin, who are used to use that product, and they automatically start buying the product, so created an immediate demand. So they created a small demand, but was significant because it allowed Italian products and services to enter into the market. But then they start teaching their next door neighbors, their extended families, their friends, the quality of the Italian products that they were using. And therefore, they were leading by example, what I was saying earlier. So they basically introduced those products and services into the local market without requiring the companies that were exporting the products from Italy to invest in that initial stage of discovering the qualities of the product. So from that point of view, I think the Italian communities around the world, not just in Australia, have been instrumental to facilitate the Italian export in the countries where they live. That's why we commonly refer to Italians in the world as unpaid ambassadors of Made in Italy. So that's where that expression comes from. They were the natural unpaid ambassador. And I tell you what, in terms of effectiveness of market penetration, it's much more effective to buy products that your friends are using because you can see how good they are than actually buying products or services by impulse through advertising. That takes a much longer process. So they have been very effective unpaid ambassadors of the Made in Italy. Of course, on the other side, you have got the realization that Italian products and services have what I think are three very important characteristics. One is that Made in Italy products are very high quality products, and therefore they deliver what you the qualities that you say that they have. They deliver because they are very high quality products. Also, Italians are champions in innovating, and therefore products keep on developing and becoming better and better. And thirdly, the one very great characteristics of Italian industry, but in general of Italians, is that we are resilient. We are very strong in our intention. So when we make a commitment, we take it through. So if you put these three qualities that are the basic qualities of the Made in Italy products and services: quality, innovation, resilience. You put these three characteristics together, the job that Italian communities did around the world was very rewarding. Was rewarding to them because they attracted also the consensus of the local society. That's not the case when I say that the Italian lifestyle has now become part of the lifestyle of Australians, because it's very easy to integrate those things when you can deliver quality, innovation, and resilience. And at the same time, that was a great benefit to Italian industry, to the industry of Made in Italy. And I think that is another reason why Italy is today one of the biggest exporters in the world.
Thank you for that, Senator. Can we take it one level further, maybe? And in these difficult times for Italy, I mean, the whole world are having difficult times, but in particular in Italy, do you see any opportunities in these Commonwealth countries for Italian, some of these producers in Italy, you know, Italy is a great manufacturing nation, but, you know, is it possible that there are some opportunities in Commonwealth countries for these manufacturers to, you know, share the love?
But, you know, the COVID-19 crisis has shown how weak the world is. Also has shown how unique the world is, because as we have been saying over the last 9 months, 7 or 9 months, viruses do not stop at borders. They don't have passports. They go from one place to another without any permissions. That has sort of created a general crisis, because everything that we used to do, frequent travel, immediate communication, personal exchanges, etc., in the last 6 months has been really folded back. It's a nightmare. Also, the great danger of the virus, which is its infection quality, the high level of infection, has stopped people from socializing, has stopped people from getting together, has stopped people from going to work. I mean, we have experienced lockdowns in almost every country in the world. In Italy, we are talking about lockdowns right now, even if they will be limited. In Australia, there's been a lockdown recently for the state of Victoria. We don't have free access from one country to another. So this has generated a huge world crisis that has resulted in a world recession. I mean, today, 12 months ago, no one would have thought that this year the gross domestic product, GDP, was going to be negative in almost all countries in the world. Instead, that's the sort of figures we deal with. But like all crises, I think during a period of crisis, that's where the contradictions, all the hidden problems become apparent. And if we look at those with the wisdom of tomorrow, if we look at those with a view to the future, I think crisis can become a great opportunity. And here is the opportunity that I think the Italians are equipped better than other countries to be able to exploit in the future. You know, first of all, Italian export still runs high, because in this period of crisis, people have turned into consumers' goods. And again, I mean, the quality of the made in Italy products has made sure that in many countries around the world, exports still are running quite high. But if we start analyzing what is possible to sell in the future, what is possible to expand in the markets in the future, I think there's the realization that Italy is really supplying, in particular in certain countries, to the maximum. I mean, if you look at Australia, for example, I mean, you go to an Australian supermarket, you go to an Australian department store, possibly you find more Italian goods in that department store or supermarket than you find in Italy. Because really, Italian products have permeated all aspects of the consumer's world. Italy also manufactures machinery and manufactures expertise in providing services to many sectors of the economy. Now, on the other hand, Australia, and I want to cite Australia here as an example, over the last 30, 40 years, has not treated the manufacturing industry with the highest priority that it deserved. The closeness to China, the high cost of production, the need to have economies of scales that are not achievable in a market of 23 million people. I mean, there's a number of reasons, but the manufacturing industry has not attracted the attention and has not developed as much as it should have. In particular, Australia is lacking today in a very important area, which is value added. In Australia, we produce very good primary products, both agriculture and mining. Some of the agricultural products are second to none, but we are not capable of adding value, of transforming those products into finished goods that they can be sold to many emerging markets around the world. So where I see the great opportunity for Italy is that, given that the market in goods and services is more or less saturated in countries such as Australia, given that on the other hand, there's many emerging markets in the Pacific area. I mean, if you look at countries such as Indonesia or Southeast Asia, let alone China, but I mean, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, whatever, there's a huge markets developing there, which by definition are far away from Italy, where Italy does not have the same competitive advantage that Australia has in dealing with these countries, with the markets in these countries. So if we consider these two aspects, on one side, the need of Australia to being able to add value to its product and therefore developing manufacturing industry, the need of Italy to gain new markets, which can be far away from Italy, both culturally and in terms of distance, I think there's a great opportunity to introduce a new paradigm, which is that of the export of business models. Italy is well equipped to export business models because contrary to many other countries, what I said earlier, made in Italy has got quality, ability to innovate, and resilience. So if you put these three things together, you have the perfect mix of getting Italian companies to invest in other countries by taking advantage of the local resources. So by using the local resources in partnerships and joint ventures with local businesses to create new firms, to create new companies, to create new production, new manufacturing production, where Italy will bring in the value added, will bring in the machinery, and the new products can be exported. So if countries such as Australia, where we've got chain of distribution with some of the southeastern countries, Indonesia, and the Pacific area, can be instrumental to facilitate the export of those goods towards those countries. If Italian companies come to invest in Australia, create new manufacturing new products, and those products can be exported in those markets. It's a win-win situation where Australia will be able to add value to its primary products. Italy will be able to gain new markets. And what makes this very attractive for a country such as Australia, but also New Zealand to a certain extent, is the presence of a large size of the community of Italian origin. So if Italian companies come to Australia, they can have the support of professionals, of marketing experts, of a great part of the society who will understand the language, will understand the culture of Italians. And that will facilitate enormously the creation of this new type of investments, which, as I said earlier, I call the new paradigm, the paradigm of exporting business model. As far as Australia is concerned, this is particularly important in this moment because the government has realized the weakness of its manufacturing industry. And although under Italian standards, the figures that I'm going to mention may sound small, for a country that has never adopted a policy of subsidizing its economic activities, because Australia has always been a believer of free market, the market forces. So for the first time in history, Australia has allocated about $1.5 billion to subsidizing the development of manufacturing industries in 6 key areas. And these are resource technology and critical minerals processing, food and beverage manufacturing, medical products, clean energy and recycling, defense and space. These are areas where Italy has got a great competitive advantage. And Australia needs the expertise of Italy to be able to add more value. Must say that in space, there's already a fair bit of collaboration between Italy and Australia. So we have to encourage the other 5 sectors. And this investment by the Australian government is divided into 3 parts. The first part, which is current now, which is only 52.8 million, is for a plan called Manufacturing Modernization Fund, which is more directed to Australian companies. The second, which will involve about $100 million investment, is Supply Chain Resilience Initiative. But the third tranche of the investment, which will be about $1.3 billion, is the building of modern manufacturing initiatives. It's large projects where I think there can be scope for Italian companies to invest, to create the sort of new economic landscape in Australia as well. Unfortunately, the biggest enemy at the moment is COVID. We can't move from one country to another. So we hope that by being able to open the borders, this process can be facilitated, and the Australian government is implementing the third largest component of the investment, the modern manufacturing initiatives, the 1.3 billion in mid of next year. So as you can see, there's lots of opportunity. And we have been talking about Australia, but this applies also to developing countries where Italians can help creating productive establishments, manufacturing establishments, to add value to the local products and to gain new markets around closest to those countries.
Senator, unfortunately our time has come to a close, so we take this opportunity to thank you for your contribution, not only today but over the years. You've been generous to our club. We are sure we'll have other opportunities soon to test your generousness, and we look forward, particularly to some of the things you said towards the end there, to see the taking up of some of these opportunities of collaboration between the countries. Thanks again from us at the Commonwealth Club and from the Festival of Diplomacy.
President, it is a pleasure to be hosted by the Commonwealth Club. I'll remain available. There's one aspect that I think we should talk about in the future, and that's how do we reach successful joint ventures and partnerships. And the basis there is understanding each other. And understanding each other means understanding each other's culture. So heavy investment in cultural activities is needed to make sure that Italians and other countries, people living in both countries, know each other very well, and they can build trust, leading to success. Thank you very much.
There's an invitation to our audience to give us some feedback and give us some ideas so we can take up the Senator's offer. Thanks again, and buon lavoro.